Welcome to Bits About Books, the home for conversations with authors of breakthrough books on sales, marketing, and business. Founders, entrepreneurs, and individual professionals, we all need to keep track of ideas that are helping create our today and tomorrow. Bits About Books will strive to find those books and speak to their authors, go behind the scenes and understand what inspired the authors to write the books that they did and how they went about doing so. Through our conversations, we hope to gain insights that will help us to get the most out of our efforts. I'm your host Shubhanjan Sarkar, founder of Pitchlink, the next generation buyer-seller engagement platform where our mission is to make buying easy.
Welcome to Bits About Books. Thank you for your time and for joining us in this session. I have a favor to ask. While you continue to listen to the podcast, please leave a comment or rating at iTunes or wherever else you get your podcasts from. I personally look at each comment and will give you a shout out to each of you in our following episodes. It means a lot to hear from you. Welcome to Bits About Books. Our guest today is Amit Agarwal, and we speak with him about his book, The Ultimate Sales Accelerator. This is the second edition of the book. This is also the book that we launched the podcast with 80 odd episodes ago. This is a great moment for both of us.
Whereas in our case, we were selling a highly complex software which takes around, the sales cycle is from 6 months to 1.5 years. The implementation is there, it's not plug and play, and therefore the deal size is very high. Correct. So in such cases, an environment was enforced in form of pandemic to do virtual selling in this large ticket sales. In spite of all these challenges, in true enterprise sales, we were able to close large deals in a complete remote manner. Deals like in a country where we are neither our office is there nor our clients are there, and yet, and the English speaking issue was also there. Yet we closed, multi-million-dollar deals. So that help, and it was happening because we were using the use case selling, which was the strategy given in the first edition in a virtual context. So when I wrote the first edition, there was no virtual selling as such explicitly. Where sometimes we'll have a remote call here and there, which was there. But now for 2 years we were doing this completely in remote manner. So this impact of use case selling in closing large deals, complex deals in a B2B context was one reason why I wrote this.
An IIT-IIM alumnus, Amit Agarwal is known for his original takes on both sales and startups. He has coined the term Salespreneur, created a sales strategy, use case selling, and has professional selling experience in 23 countries across bootstrapped Series A, B, C, and D startups. Amit aims to harness and evangelize 4 life skills: sales, mindfulness, nutritional diet, and personal finance. He believes that incremental progress in harnessing these life skills helps us balance material accomplishments and spiritual growth. Amit's 2 books, The Ultimate Sales Accelerator, the subject of today's session, and Small is Big, are steps in this journey. Now, on to this insightful episode with Amit Agarwal. Amit, welcome back to Bits About Books. It's very important because I don't know whether you remember, this was the first book that we actually spoke about on this podcast.
Oh, no. I don't. I remember distinctly talking to you about the Ultimate Sales Accelerator. It happened to be the first book. That's an honor. Thank you very much.
But this is very interesting in the life of a podcast, right? To have the author back and talk about the second edition of the first book that we spoke about.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So congratulations, and I believe you have also got a new publisher for the new edition.
Yeah, so this is Penguin, published by Penguin, the second edition, or we call it expanded and updated edition of the Ultimate Sales Accelerator, is published by Penguin. Yeah.
So I know that lots and lots of people bought your book, and I mean, when all the international forums that we have organized, I have invited you in because I think that voices from India, specifically about sales
Yeah.
books, are very limited. If I compare to say Europe or definitely North America, very few actually books get written. So this is a
Yeah, yeah.
great
Thank you.
milestone for you. What necessitated the second edition uh, to be expanded?
This the first edition was released in 2019 July, and then around this pandemic time, which is 2020 time, I was writing Small is Big, my second book. So I
Yeah.
had submitted the manuscript to the Penguin in around April of 2021, and after that the question was, as a writer, constantly new ideas come, correct? So one of the things I had is that, shall I write a book on virtual selling? So because during that time, see, in my experience, I'm not only an author, I'm also a practitioner. I head sales, for a software company. So I am fortunate to implement things and also experience whatever are highs and lows in the B2B sales context. So the pandemic, as you recall, from 2020 April to 2022, around 2 years, had its large share of impact on how people do B2B sales, correct? And so from that context, I think I had that because we were closing deals. We were closing deals, that too big deals. Typically virtual selling existed before pandemic also. However, it was mostly, you can say, deals which are lower in value, and more importantly less complex. I think the less complexity part was software is simple, correct too. Whereas in our case, we were selling a highly complex software which takes around, the sales cycle is from 6 months to 1.5 years. The implementation is there, it's not plug and play, and therefore the deal size is very high, correct? So in such cases, an environment was enforced in form of pandemic to do virtual selling in this large ticket sales. So that was the one of the reasons that, in spite of all these challenges, in true enterprise sales, we were able to close large deals in a complete remote manner. Deals like in a country where people, we are neither our office is there nor our clients are there, and yet, and the English speaking issue was also there, yet we closed, multi-million dollar deals. So that help, and it was happening because we were using the use case selling, which was the strategy given in the first edition, in a virtual context. So when I wrote the first edition, there was no virtual selling as such, explicitly, where sometimes we'll have a remote call here and there, which was there, but now for 2 years we were doing this completely in remote manner. So this impact of use case selling in closing large deals, complex deals in a B2B context was one reason why I wrote this. The second reason was, when I was doing, several trainings, bodies like industry bodies like NASCOM, Your Story, several of them, IITs, IIM, they have invited me. And when I did these trainings, I almost did around 100 plus trainings. There was, you learn from your, you can call that audience or students also, correct? So there were several questions which were asked. For example, how does meditation help in sales? For example, there was a person who said, I have done everything as far as sales process is concerned, yet I can't close a deal. So those questions also propelled me, that to write more about it. Now the choice was to create a new book, correct? And I decided against it because it's like saying, if you have a recipe and you have 10 ingredients, so the 8 to 9 ingredients remain the same, and the core ingredient being use case selling, correct? And there were around 2 3 you will say a different alignment to the virtual selling context, which we did. And that is the reason I said, instead of creating a new book, I would create an expanded and updated edition. and to reflect the true spirit of what we have done. So that's the context.
Wonderful. And what was your typical sort of, how long did you take to write these
Yeah.
portions that were new? And what was the process that you were using to do that?
Yeah. So this one was relatively fast. So if I recall, I think I decided around April, May of 2022, correct? And the book was released on December 2022, correct? So
Right.
I think it was around submitted on August end or September beginning. So you can say around 3 to 4 months of writing and editing,
Right.
which is relatively much lesser than what it took to the first edition. I think one more reason is that I was very clear on what I'm writing. So and also
Correct.
it is also clear that it is coming from an experiential context. So virtual selling, 2 years I have done. And if you recall, I'm writing this in 2022 when the pandemic is about to wane away, correct? So
Yeah.
so therefore it was coming from putting those experiential learnings in form of a written so that was one reason. And I think the other thing was the other part, which if you see in the book, which is given in the bonus section, is the readers. So it has around 8 to 9 experiences of using use case selling and the ultimate sales accelerator in both personal life and business for around 8 to 9 readers. So that was very interesting, so reaching out to them. So I would say some part of the content is actually directly experiential from the reader. So that was also clear because I wanted to see that, okay, now 3.5 years have passed. How are people adopting this? And it was very pleasant to see, let's say, a father using use case selling to influence his daughter to join judo or karate. There is another person, a lady who actually used use case selling to. She writes in her experience that to position herself during interviews. So she says, I was able to sell myself. And of course there are different demand generation, how people wrote emails, correct? So how, because the concept of use case selling, the 4-part structure, can be applied not only in hardcore B2B sales in various aspects. So demand generation was very interesting. One person wrote about a unique pain point. He said that I understood that it is not about USP, because the book talks about USP versus UBP, unique buying point, which leads to UPP, unique pain point. And that gentleman, talks about his experience of how he used UPP, and how it helps. So that was also one very interesting part. I was very clear on what I am writing. So therefore, around 4 months was the cycle. Yeah.
And before we move on, actually talk about it, how did these stories come to you? Are these people coming and talking to you themselves, or you happen to meet them in one of the places where you potentially went to talk?
Yeah. So actually, what happened is that, as I've mentioned in the preface of the updated edition, is that the response I got to the first edition was you can call it surreal, you can call it touching, whatever words. And one of the reasons for surreal and touching is that the number of people posted their experiences on LinkedIn. If I recall, it would be more than 100. There are Amazon reviews, which is a different thing, correct? Putting your experience for a first-time author who is still working, correct? On LinkedIn, somebody says that this is not a book, this is a process in itself. Somebody says this is like driving Ferrari of sales. They're using metaphor. So because of so many people writing on LinkedIn, so that was one source. People are also writing to me then on LinkedIn. Also, as you rightly said, I've given various trainings,
Right.
so you meet people. Some of the people I met was during this NASCOM, Your Story, IIT, IIMs. That was also some people. I remember one person asking me during webinar, I have done everything, yet I can't close a deal. So I remember the name because the question was very, very interesting. Correct? So basically, through various, either through LinkedIn or through a webinar or through in-person sessions, I came to know, and I remembered. I can't remember everybody, but I remember. And then when I was curating it,
Sure.
I wanted to do a balance of life and business, because this use case selling, the key part of it is that one strategy that works in selling both in life and business. Correct? So that is the reason I chose those. Of course, I wrote to them. It was their decision to, whether agree, and people were very gracious to share their experiences, and now they are part of the book.
Wonderful. So let's move on and let's dive into the book straight away. Let's talk about using use case selling for virtual selling. Just before you start talking, I also want to touch upon that in the previous avatar, as you know, as a practitioner, virtual selling existed as inside sales. So the job of that inside sales team was to not meet customers face to face in the field, but essentially either sell directly or so it was there, like you said, it was there. It was sort of brewing, but obviously the pandemic forced it as a lifestyle change for every salesperson. So every salesperson had to become a virtual seller. That was really the twist that pandemic brought to it. So let's hear about this new chapter and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so as you rightly said, that virtual selling existed. The only one form was inside sales, as you. The other also existed in terms of, let's say, if you look at companies which were selling simpler software. Let's say if you look at CRM companies, or if you look at Zoom, there are several. So complexity of product and complexity of buyer dynamic. This is a quadrant created by Forrester, right, which says low, high, low, high. So if you are complexity of product is high, complexity of buyer dynamic is high, that is a quadrant which was difficult to do sales in virtual selling context. But if the complexity of product and buyer dynamic is low to medium, software, as we spoke about, let's say whether it is HubSpot or whether it is some other CRM, some simpler softwares, but still getting sold and deals were getting closed before that. It was the complexity of sale, which there was no other recourse during that time, which actually created a different motion. And I am actually in that quadrant, complexity of buyer dynamic and product both being higher. So I was selling that I still selling the same kind of software.
Tell us about how you think virtual selling per se worked during this period, whether this is something, is this an extendable skill, and how you can potentially use your core philosophy in virtual selling.
Absolutely. So see, you can break this, as given in the book, it is divided into three areas: PPT, people, process, and tools. Correct. So now the people aspect, I remember talking to in April of 2020, when it just started pandemic. I spoke to one of my team member and I said, "How are you?" I of course asked him in Hindi, "Kaise hain aap?" And he said, "I don't have a job." And he's a very calm person, and the response, he said it very calmly, by the way. But the response was very curious, it's strange, whatever word, "I don't have a job." And I looked at him, and before I could ask him, he said, "You see, Amit, what you are seeing, I keep on sitting here entire day, and I cannot meet my clients, therefore I don't have a job." So that incident, this person was deputed internationally in a different region, very calm person. He actually said this with lot of lot of calmness, but I could sense that feeling of helplessness, or a potential mental wellness issues which were having, getting developed everywhere, and especially in context of enterprise sales, because people are used to meeting people in person, and that is the reason why you depute people in international locations. Correct. So it was happening everywhere. Correct. So I think that one part of this is, that people aspect, that when we are doing virtual selling, right, during that time, it required more patience. And I call it Shraddha, Sabri, Sadhana. Shraddha is faith, Sabri is patience, and Sadhana is disciplined action. So faith in the selling methodology. That okay, virtual selling needs to be done. Correct. Patience with the people, that it is a change, especially during that time. Now it is a lesser of a change because some habit patterns have been created. And sadhana is disciplined action. For example, during that time we used to create OKRs, which said that one video per week, which is 12 videos in a quarter, so quarterly OKRs. And then we later on decreased it also. If I remember, it became 4 or 8. And people took it very enthusiastically. And rather than saying okay, only this kind of video, we said whatever video. So some people will record themselves on WhatsApp, and actually share in WhatsApp to the client, because what we were doing is the habit pattern of video creation. The habit was more important. The quality of content can come as a next step. So right. These are the things which helped. I remember one of our sales owners, nobody told him that he was doing this very well anyhow. What he did, he created a video and put on LinkedIn. I think that was, as far as I remember, for him it was perhaps the most successful post he has ever done, because people were reacting. He was so balanced, calm, and he was putting on LinkedIn. Correct. So this is the people aspect. The process aspect, there are several things in use case selling which we leveraged. However, one aspect which I have often said is that the process aspect is metaphors. So and that is in the use case selling, metaphors, storytelling is very spoken at length. But metaphor, I'll give you an example of a metaphor used in a virtual selling context during that time. So there was a deal where a client said, you are chosen for your software is CDP, customer data platform, and it actually, the intelligence lies within your platform. I do have a marketing automation from other vendor. Everything responsibility of the initiative is with you. Now CDP and marketing automation work together. CDP, it is the customer intelligence, and marketing automation is communicating using that intelligence on various channels: email, SMS, WhatsApp, website, several channels. Correct? App. So he said, it is your company's responsibility. And so I said, you are correct that intelligence is of this software, and it's like the brain in the human body. So that's like CDP is the brain of the human body, but marketing automation is hand and legs. Now imagine brain of one body, hand and legs of another body. It will not work. And the person was chief operating officer. And this example is given in the book, by the way, in that chapter. And he listened to me. He said, give me 2 days. Correct. And he came back. He said, the point is valid. Marketing automation also will take from you. And then they later replaced. So this was one example of, in a virtual selling context, one of the key element of use case selling is storytelling and metaphors. And in this case, a metaphor was used, for actually closing a deal. And then in case of tools, I think I mentioned about, there are several tools, you are aware of it, LinkedIn, several tools, But for us, one of the things which we did is that in virtual selling, people who high performance sales owners, what they did, they prepared very well in virtual selling context, even sometimes better than in person. So, I have seen even my team members, they will be dressed in a suit or in a blazer, in a shirt, correct? Very well, the face is lit up in terms of either a light or a normal light, and then even if you see, there is if you see yourself and myself, we have the difference between the top end and is around very less, correct? A lot of people will do like this or this, this is also normal tools that we decided that half of the body needs to be seen, correct? And another aspect of this is that if you look at hands, there's a research which said that people who move hands or where hands can be seen in TEDx, those TED talks were more successful. His research is also given. Now, if your face is half seen from, then your hands can be seen. But if you are like this, it is very awkward, correct? So these are the switching video on during the at least minimum during the beginning of the call and end of the call, and whenever you are speaking. If the person is difficult to continuously, it is causing screen fatigue, beginning and in between. So these are, I've just picked some people, process and tools, one example to give you context
Sure.
of what lies in that coverage in that chapter.
It's time for a short break. Stay with us. After the break,
In-person interactions, is a different thing. You can see people, you can see the environment. So in a remote context, what becomes very important is your preparedness. So the content also became very important. So I'll give you an example. In one of the retailers which we were selling, we showed them that you need to buy personalization. That was the pitch. We showed them the personalization adoption on their website, as well as 2 to 3 other competitors of theirs.
You are listening to a Business Podcast Network original. Podcasting is the fastest growing content marketing opportunity, which is untapped. We can help you craft your audio strategy and help leverage the wide reach and easy streaming capability that the smartphone penetration provides. It is easy, it is powerful and personal. Talk to us to find out how podcasting can help you build your brand and reach out to your targets like never before. Write to us at bpn@bizcast.in. That is bpn@bizcast.in. Business Podcast Network. Podcasts end to end.
welcome back. I'm Shubhanjan Sarkar, your host for Bits About Books and founder of PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. Let's dive right back into the episode where we left it. See, some of what you told me, for instance, the storytelling part, the use of metaphor, that could be done in a face-to-face sales as equally well, right?
Exactly.
So is there something that sort of pops out at you, which is very virtual selling specific, which makes that more effective? Is there anything that you have noticed?
Yeah, so I think I said in the process part, the another piece which we looked at is that insight. As I said, that's the reason I didn't create a book separately. Because it was easy for me to become third book during that time, correct? But I chose because fundamentally you're doing the same things. The people aspect, which is different, which is you need to be more patient with people as they're adopting. The tools aspect is also different because there is a lot of technology or videos which are coming on. The process aspect, you are leveraging the process of use case selling. I spoke about metaphor. However, it became in-person interactions, it's a different thing. You can see people, you can see the environment. So in a remote context, what becomes very important is your preparedness. So the content also became very important. So I'll give you an example. In one of the retailers which we were selling, we showed them that you need to buy personalization. That was the pitch. We showed them the personalization adoption on their website, as well as 2 to 3 other competitors of theirs. We have just, in one slide, and we use the concept of again use case selling, the magic of one thing in sales. So we asked, if we have to show only one thing to this chief digital officer, what would we show? And we said, rather than pitching our product, we'll say, what is the adoption of personalization on your website, and as well as in your top 3 competitors. And we, in the spirit, true transparency spirit, there was one company in India who was the company which we were selling. Let's say that company was A, it has a very low adoption. The other 2 also had very low adoption, the competitors. There was one competitor which has very high adoption. And we showed it. And the person asked, what are they using? What are they using? And before I could answer, his GM, I think GM that time, told him that they have actually created personalization in house because they have a large tech team. Okay? Now, this, if you recall, you can marry it with use case selling, storytelling, all of that. But in virtual selling, we are saying deep preparedness, because there's no physical, rapport building, and all of that is difficult, in that context. In the physical context is easy. So you create rapport through compelling content. So when that content was created, the person remembers, nobody else presented like this to me. Correct. So one of the things which we did is we worked on our narratives. We worked on our narratives. It's not, how you present. We spoke about tools, the distance between. That's the how part, or what you present. Correct. So
Absolutely.
These are the examples where, whether it was metaphor. I'm not seeing the person. In fact, I'm actually talking on phone. But because I'm habitual to creating metaphors, it was easy. Similarly, the ability to create compelling content, when the team started feeling that this works, they themselves started creating it. I'll give you one more example. One client said that, I want to address 5 use cases. So my team member responds saying, "Thank you very much. We will be happy to show those 5 use cases. In addition, progressive retailers like this also look at 5 other use cases which are enclosed here." Correct. Now again, what is happening? Correct. Now this is deep level of preparation in terms of content. You can argue that this is required in physical, of course. Okay? During the pandemic, there was no other recourse. If you have to close a deal, you need to have this compelling content, or I call it narratives, which can create an aha moment, and more importantly, the memory recall. Because see, the same buyer, so many people are presenting. It's very boring for them, by the way. So I say, what is the one thing that person will remember? And this kind of, you can say, provocative, or you can say which creates memorable recall. And that is what helped us. And this was the part of that process, metaphor, content, which helped us.
Wonderful. One quick question before we move on to the insight selling chapter. And one of the key challenges in sales, and not even virtual, any sales, is what we call building trust with the customer, right? You used the word rapport, so that sort of triggered this thought. Rapport is possibly not enough. I mean, the person may have a good rapport, but if they don't trust you fully, they still may not deal with you. They may like you, but they may not still deal with you. So what do you think about actually building trust in a remote? So I'm using today virtual selling as remote sales, so that
Absolutely.
it's similar, right? I mean, so my question to you is, what do you need to do? So the content part builds the credibility, the authority, that okay, this guy has put in the time to understand. So it's possibly also helping towards building rapport, and possibly is partial trust, because you are, like in your case, the 3 competitors you shared, 2 of them were similar state, another had done very well, but it's not a sly way of saying, okay, this guy uses my product. He was not using your product, but you are just showing that this is possible, right? So my question is, how do you build trust in a remote sales or a virtual selling scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful question, and I'll give you examples, so that it is relatable. So, see, one example you yourself just basically reminded is that when you create compelling content, and you create compelling content from the perspective of buyer, to help that, rather than from the perspective of selling, then so the rapport is the first beginning. And in our sale, the kind of complex sales we were doing, it is not one deal, one meeting which is closing that. I remember in one particular incident, in around 2 weeks we did 12 calls in a Southeast Asia country, right? So I think this, when you say, I remember I talked about sadhana, which is disciplined action. So one a way of creating rapport and which moves to trust is that when you are disciplined action from the perspective of helping the buyer, correct? So then people start liking people. This is a very disciplined. Of course, disciplined and compelling. Both. Your disciplined action is there, and the content which you are sharing.
Yeah.
It is from the perspective of buyer. You are saying this I have, this I don't have. Right. Now, so that is one thing which helped me before pandemic, during pandemic, and now, and will continue to help everybody.
Absolutely.
The second area which has certainly helped, and we did it during that time, is that the reference calls. Like I remember selling in one of the Southeast Asia country a multi-million-dollar deal, and we didn't had many clients in that particular country. And of course the salesperson is also not there. Correct? The product which we were selling, we had compelling references in other countries. Correct? So one of the things which we did is, okay, we did those demos, 12 I mentioned to you, all of that. So it already created a level of, you can say if rapport is 5, it would have reached to, let's say, 7. Correct? But if you have to say trust is in the category of 8, 9, 10. Correct? So that what we did is that we arranged 2 calls, one with a US client. Sometimes people have aspiration. Okay, is this an international company or not? We have not heard about this in this particular country. And another was in the same region of Southeast Asia.
Right.
So now these were also very thoughtfully curated. Both could be from Southeast Asia, both could be from US, correct? But very thoughtfully curated, correct? Where we did this call, and the call will start, we will introduce, and we'll leave. So that was also one way of the trust. The other thing is that during this time, in complex and large deals, I came into the picture, because in normal this thing, I may not be there in every, in the remote selling, of course, you don't have to travel. So I came into picture, and especially in key instances. So what happens when a senior person from the company is coming, then it builds credibility, and because typically people are used to seeing, let's say, a sales owner and their pre-sales team. But let's say I can't hide my age, correct? So people when they see, okay, a senior person is there in the call, and not in every call, but we have actually programmed those that when are needed. Then it also builds. And I remember in one particular deal, we don't bring our CEO generally, but in one particular deal in that Southeast Asia country, we actually brought him in the last, because he is very good, because even CEO of a company is coming, and we arranged that call with the CIOs of that Southeast Asia company. They actually in 15 minutes, they gelled very well. Right. So these are some of the things which increased the trust during that time.
So what additional information have you shared in the inside selling related chapter?
So this is again, you gain from your own experience, correct? So when I wrote Insight was part of the first edition. Correct? It's a key pillar, and there were several examples given in that. Correct? When after releasing that edition, when I was, even they say even a master as a student. Correct. So I was also implementing use case selling in various sales. Correct. So when I observed that in terms of insight, there are 3 kinds of insight which I could see that structure, and I'll share in this call. The first insight was same client, and the other is insight from other client, and the third is research based. And we'll take one by one. So same client. So suppose you are in B2B sales, and you are selling to a client. Now the question is, what can you tell to that buyer about his or her own business, which he or she doesn't know? Own business, So that part I remember, and just to give you an example, I've given this in the book also. So one of the where we implemented this is that to do this kind of one is deep preparation is required, especially in complex products, because you are almost doing a trial or denying trial or almost doing a trial to gain those insights. So we were not a trial company. We at that point of time we were not doing trial, correct? So then deep discussions and preparation is required. Or the other way is to become a buyer of your potential buyer's product. So in this case, I'll give you an example. So we were selling to an insurance company, and I was actually looking for insurance, a term insurance. It's not that just because I'm in marketing, I wanted to check. I was looking for insurance. So I went to their website and I basically put my terms and my age and all, and I think 27,000 something came as a monthly premium. And then, as it happens, somebody called me and I couldn't complete it. Correct? And then, using this, when I went again to their website, they didn't recognize me as a new buyer, as a existing funnel. I have to fill everything again. Correct? I did receive an email from them that because I had given my email ID, but I didn't, the website personalization was not happening. Correct. And this is basically you're buying where? On website. Correct. And neither if you go to, let's say, digital media, if you're on any website, retargeting happens now, where that was also not happening. Correct. So what I did is I created a deck out of it. In a storytelling format, I said, I visited this website, let's say Pinnacle Life Insurance, and I pitched this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then I got email, but this didn't happen. This kind of narrative, and I said this kind of gap can be fulfilled if you do this, which is of course my solution. Correct. And it is given in the book as slide headlines, because I couldn't copy paste the slide. I have put the headlines in the book. Correct. And what happens, I think you send around 7:10 and 7:27 or 7:26 p.m. the chief digital officer responded. And then I think 2-3 months we closed the deal. Correct. Now, this is an insight about their own business. And in this example, I didn't have to do much, by the way, because I was becoming their buyer. Correct? So this is one form of insight, which is whomsoever you are selling, can you tell him or her something which he or she doesn't know about her own business? It can come by becoming a buyer. It can come by deep preparation. It can come through trial. The point is to find that out. So that was one. The other is, insight from experience. What can your buyer learn from the experience of the other? So, which we say is case studies or success stories. So if you are able to share that, where the person says, I have not heard about it. Because, for example, in one of the clients, we shared that this is an implementation where you are having connected experiences, where your inbound experience and outbound experience, inbound is your website app and outbound is your email, SMS, these kind of, all of them are connected. And this is the first company who is doing this. Now, we are showing an example of some other brand, which is live, by the way, which is relevant in terms of both technology, which this person is buying or exploring, and also it creates an aspiration. You say in sales, we said buying vision. So how to create a buying vision? If you keep pitching your product, So in the first example also, the first type of insight, a buying vision was created. In this example, when you are, it creates an effect of FOMO. Another example, remember that example of a retailer, we said we gave them 3-4 comparisons. Correct. So this is also basically you are showing what others are doing. Correct. So in the true transparency. So that is insight based on what others are doing. So other client. And the third is research based. So research based, which is, I'll give you Forrester had coined a term called connected experiences. And for one of the large retailers, when we actually used that term and we created a slide using Forrester, and we said that this is what Forresters say, connecting inbound and outbound experiences. And what started happening is that because of before using these words and research, the person somehow felt that he has done everything. But when we use this third party validation in word, and then suddenly he started opening up. There were 3 workshops which were done, which were nowhere planned, correct? And the most important part was the person started using the word connected experience himself, and he's in organization. Because suddenly an academic research which was done by third party, in this case Forrester, was used. So these were the 3 form of insight in the same client using their own data. Other client which is using somebody else's experience which is relevant, and third is research based insights. When we use this, I think these were the part which was not there in the first edition in that level of detail. This was added.
Very, very pertinent and very useful. One quick clarification. So this approach can work. I mean, I'm using these terms loosely. This approach can work in a ABM kind of motion. Because you essentially know that this is a customer I can actually sell to. So your pre-qualification is not necessarily that they're ready to buy, but the fact that they can use your services or your software. That qualification has to be extremely strong to be able to make this kind of investment in time and resource.
Yeah, so you're correct. So one is that all these clients which we were looking at, these are for us marquee clients in that space, whether the insurance company or retailers. These are now my thing is that, see, there is does the need exist or are you creating the need? Correct. And so in the kind of software which I have sold, where the market is small, ticket sizes are large, and the complexity is very high. Correct. And implementation is very high. The inbound is relatively very less. Right? So in that case, we have to create the need. Now, that doesn't mean that our ICP is not clearly defined. In fact, we have defined ICP in such a way, we have further refined it in such a way that, the person whom we are talking, whether they need it or not right now, they are part of our refined ICP, which is the customer profile. So that's the context in which we have used it.
Bits About Books is brought to you by PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. PitchLink makes buying easy by enabling high-quality engagement between buyers and sellers through its presentation and discussion modules. Sellers create customized sales narratives using sales collaterals and personal videos, and reach out to prospects through a non-intrusive, buyer-qualified engagement. PitchLink requires no installation or download and holds the entire repository of sales collaterals and buyer-seller conversations. Talk to us to know more about how you can engage with customers without intrusion. Call us on 99021 631 32.
Just 2 chapters that we just discussed.
Yes.
Can bring in significant value to anybody who is paying attention.
Absolutely.
But like you said, in fact, yesterday I was talking to a friend, and the discussion was that our ability to listen and implement. It's not only listening or reading, it's internalizing and using.
Yes.
That's the challenge in today's world. It's not that we lack information.
Yes.
We have everything around us.
Yes.
Available very easily.
Yes.
But I mean, you spoke about LinkedIn. If you go there and see, everybody is offering some cheat sheet. Everybody is offering something. And typically any of those offers will have 500 requests to share for free. I wonder how many of those people who are collecting these artifacts are actually going and even looking at it.
Yeah.
Forget about, so the FOMO part is working very well, but beyond that, I think using the knowledge that is available is key. Because what you just told, I think, especially in terms of insights about the company, it's not easy. Obviously, it's not easy. You cannot tell somebody who's running a business, hey, you know what, you are not doing this.
Yeah.
And that may not be applicable in every scenario.
Exactly.
You have to really try to find. So which means you have to invest.
Invest.
And I guess the big challenge in today's, oh, I need to do this quarter's numbers, is that we are not willing to invest. Amit, thank you so much. This was a wonderful discussion. I'm glad, and I wish many more editions of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shivanjan. As always, a pleasure talking to you, and thanks for inviting me to this podcast. Thank you.
We have a fantastic lineup over the next couple of episodes with great conversations on breakthrough books. Subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you do not miss a single episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for being with us today on Bits About Books, where we talk to authors about breakthrough books on sales, marketing, and business. We hope this conversation helped inform and motivate as we all navigate a rapidly changing business environment. For us, these are enlightening conversations enriched with knowledge and expertise. We encourage you to go out and buy the book to learn firsthand and implement some of the great ideas we discussed today. We hope to have you with us again in the next exciting episode of Bits About Books. If you liked what you heard, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast platforms like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcast from, and give us a rating while you are at it.
This Bizcast original podcast is produced for PitchLink, the next generation buyer-seller engagement platform, where the mission is to make buying easy. Hosted by Subhanjan Sarkar and produced by Rajiv Aditya. See you next time and have a wonderful day.